How's it going, everyone? Welcome to a Football for Fun clip. We normally live stream on Wednesdays at about 9 Eastern, 8 Central. So if you really enjoy this content and don't want to miss a live stream, please feel free to subscribe to our channel. We're trying to grow our channel. We recently got 100. We are very proud. With that said, enjoy the clip. Jaire Alexander, who many still consider one of the best corners in the league, who was cut by Green Bay last week, I believe, got signed by the Baltimore Ravens, I believe on a relatively cheap deal. I don't remember the exact numbers. It was like 6 million or something like that.
Really?
It was something like pretty cheap.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he was signed for just 1 year, 6 million, if
Okay,
I'm
I
not
hadn't
mistaken.
actually seen the
But
contract details yet. They got him cheap, man. They got him cheap.
let me double check, but I believe it was like six.
Yeah, double check real
Of course,
quick.
this
That does
article's not just
matter.
going to straight
That,
up
that
tell
matters
me.
a good bit.
Yes, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Alexander signed to a 1 year deal worth 6 million.
Okay.
So, Isaac, what's your reaction? Do you think that's a steal, or do you think Jaire is too
So
high maintenance
I think that's a
to where,
steal.
yeah.
I'm not worried about the maintenance there. He's played with Lamar before. That's why Lamar wanted to go get him. That's his guy. And I think that they potentially just got one of the best corners in the league when healthy. They got him for cheap. 6 million for 1 year is just an absolute steal. Um, and they could use some secondary help. They had some problems there last year. They got Humphrey, they got Nate Wiggins, but you add Jaire Alexander. Even if he misses games due to injury, you've still got solid depth overall, I would say, and you're not going to rely on him too much when he is playing. So I think it's a smart move. Worst case scenario, he gets injured and doesn't play much, and you cost yourself $6 million. Not a big deal, in my opinion. Best case scenario, you just added one of the best corners in the league to your team, and that could be this could be a move we look back on and say this is why they're in the Super Bowl, or this is why they win the Super Bowl. I think it has the potential to be that good of a move. It could also just be nothing because he's got injury problems and maybe he's a bit of a character at times. Some people have said that. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I think Baltimore is a pretty good fit for him. I like the move a lot for both sides. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yes, that does make sense. I think 6 million. Now, I think a lot of people on the internet are quick to jump to conclusions when it comes to a veteran player being signed for relatively little money, being like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, that's a steal." But you also have to remember there are reasons why he's not going for like whatever, 13, 20 million, something like that. And yeah, Sudoku does ask some good questions, but I do think it's pretty, reasonable given that, he is relatively high maintenance, also injury prone. Sudoku does raise a point which maybe you remember as a Panthers fan, which is that dude had a coin toss fiasco versus the Panthers when he randomly decided he was a captain and said kick instead of defer, which should have meant the Panthers would receive to start both halves.
Mm. I honestly, that might have been a
Unfortunately,
game I
ref
missed
allowed
because
him to
I don't even
clarify.
remember witnessing that. So I'm not
Yeah,
even
I think
sure.
it's one of those like stories that got brushed under the rug. Like a lot of
Mm.
people don't really talk about it, but apparently he went out there and just said like whatever he said and just like he wasn't the designated captain, but he's still just like one of those situations. But
I
anyway,
don't see
what
that
I also
happening in
do,
Baltimore. I'm not worried. But when we're talking about the comments here in
yeah,
chat,
I think
about Baltimore having an elite offense and defense on paper, been like this for the past few years. Did they have an elite defense on paper last year too? I don't remember, but I know they fell off and they were not as good. Um, but the defense was their problem
so.
last year for a
Yeah,
lot of the season. What do you think of that?
yeah. No, listen to this. Listen to their roster. This is the secondary. So their secondary is Nate Wiggins, Kyle Hamilton, Malachi Starks, Marlon Humphrey, and Jaire Alexander. Talk about on paper
Like
like a
on paper,
no-fly
that's the
zone.
best secondary in the league. I mean, you know that I'm a big fan of Malachi Stark, so I already think they have one of the best safety duos. And you add Jaire to the cornerback room, like it doesn't get much better than that on paper. But will they come through? Will they come through? That's the big question.
Right.
And of course, when they get to the playoffs, are
I
they going
think
to choke again?
they figured their defense out after losing to Jameis. I mean, it figures, right? But yeah, no, I agree. That is on paper a very good secondary. One thing I will say though, I noticed this interesting trend about the Ravens, which is that they oftentimes have, and I say oftentimes, I guess I'm only thinking of three instances where they'll acquire a veteran player, like a veteran former superstar, and
Hmm.
we think that like this is gonna be the move that takes them over the hump. I'm thinking of like Derrick Henry, who has worked out to his credit. I'm thinking about OBJ as well, whom they've signed before, and also Jaire Alexander. I'm sure there are other examples I'm not
DeAndre
thinking of. I feel
Hopkins.
like it's something the Ravens do. They just did they sign DeAndre Hopkins?
They had him at some point.
Was he? Oh, this season? I think it is this season. Is he
Is
a
he there
Raven
right
this
now?
season?
I don't. I
I think
honestly,
so. I
that might be
think
the case.
last year Hopkins was on the Chiefs.
That's right.
He is a
Yeah.
Raven. Yes, I
Okay.
completely forgot about that. Well, I don't think anyone thinks that this is going to be anything league
No, and
changing,
I think
but
everyone knew
still, it is
OBJ
very.
wasn't gonna take them over the top. I mean, like, he was in a rough spot at that point, wasn't he?
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, I agree with chat here.
I thought back then there were still a number of OBJ believers. Maybe it was a little bit more recently than I thought. Was this before or after Miami? Is what I would wonder.
I think it's
This
before.
was
Oh, sorry,
after
after.
LA. So this was okay. So for context, for those of you saying like, "Oh, we all knew he was washed," remember? So this was he took a year off in 2022, which I mean, yes, that is like like you would understand like after that, but in 2021. He had a brilliant Super Bowl, or he was on track to have a brilliant Super Bowl before he like tore his Achilles, which kind of led him to be out for 2022. So I think there were, even though it was a small number of like delusional fans, I do think there were people who thought that like this was some like big deal move. He's still unsigned. I mean, of course,
Of course.
now he's just like a nobody. Is OBJ a top 100 receiver in the
No,
NFL? I don't
no,
even
he's not.
think so.
Honestly, he's. We'll get to the overrated versus underrated players later, but he's one who was overrated for a lot of the time in his career. He had that one catch that really
He's
single-handedly propelled him to fame, and it's just, yeah, he wasn't as
yeah.
good as people thought.
I mean, nah, he was definitely on the overrated side. Definitely, I didn't even put him on the list. I think he's so
I
relevant
mean, I
in my
forgot he
mind now that
existed.
he's just.
I mean, sorry, man.
Yeah, I know, but no, yeah. So it does seem like the Ravens have a track record of just kind of like adding these like veteran players, trying to help them get over the hump. But Roquan Smith's another one. He's another. Now Roquan,
Well,
I
he's
think is
good.
he's a younger player who's really worked
Yeah.
out for them. But you know,
It's
again,
really
at
just
what
it's the
point? So
veteran
those who ask.
receivers that they get. Those are the ones who don't pan out. It's like Baltimore and also Tennessee, by the way. Those are places that veteran receivers just go to die, and then you never hear from them again.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Sorry. Definitely not awkward. But no, it'll be interesting to see if the how the Ravens like if they can like finally get over the hump because you would think just generally if you're talking about the outlook of the AFC, right?
Hmm.
At some point the Chiefs won't make it, you would think, right?
Well, I'm predicting
So
it's this
if the
year,
Chiefs don't
so
make it, yeah, I mean that's what a lot of people seem to be thinking. It's like I think also with like the Chiefs not winning the AFC West, it's like no one really wants to predict it, but also at some point might happen.
it's more
And there's gonna be
possible
that
than we
one, I told you
realize.
so, but
Yeah,
you told us so like 10 other times, and like
right.
the Chiefs still won. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Like if the Chiefs if the Chiefs don't win the AFC, who do we think are the favorites to win
I've
the
got
AFC? I mean,
Buffalo. I've got
Eagles,
Buffalo winning the
Ravens.
Super Bowl, so
Yeah.
I'm still in on that. I was gonna say, I know that I said this move by Baltimore. They got Jaire Alexander. It has the potential to put them over the hump. I'm not predicting that yet. In fact, I'm still gonna say Buffalo wins the
Okay.
AFC. I'm still taking the Chiefs over the Ravens until they actually prove it in the playoffs. I'm not willing to say that they stop choking because no matter how amazing Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are every year, somehow it just doesn't work. Last year they should have broken through. This year, I just assume that they're gonna choke again. I don't wish that on them, but how can I confidently say they're gonna break through? And I know you can also point to the Bills and
And
say they haven't gotten past Kansas City in the playoffs, so that's a fair
the
counterpoint.
Bills have had the Bills have played well in the playoffs.
Right.
It's felt like the Ravens have had some like what
The
really
Ravens like
like
undo their
that
entire identity when they make the playoffs. Like 2 years ago, they stopped running the ball against the
yeah they just
Chiefs. Last year, I'm not
I
even sure
know
what they did, but it was not them.
right. Let me ask you this, just a fun question. Who do you think is more likely to represent the AFC? The Ravens, whom we're down on the playoffs, or what I believe to be the only AFC team to have made the Super Bowl besides the Chiefs in a reign of terror, which is the Bengals.
Oh, the
Who do you think
Ravens.
is more likely to?
The
Do you
Ravens
think
have
the
a more
Ravens are more
complete
likely
team, and
than
the
Bengals?
Bengals don't have a defense. I assume the defense will be
I
slightly better
mean,
next season than they were last year, but it's not enough for them to go on much of a run. Like they'll win a game if they make the playoffs, possibly, but I can't trust that defense in the playoffs. I can't even trust them to make the playoffs.
I think you can use that same logic on the Bills, yet you have them winning the Super Bowl.
He must have said that like right before I said that.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it was in that video we talked about the. I don't know, but anyway, yeah. I mean, it's the NFL. Sometimes logic doesn't apply.
I'm
I'm
imagining
imagining
how
how
lopsided.
lopsided Bengals practices
Oh man.
that has got. Especially, I mean, without Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart, it's like they're just like, yeah, that is
Can
such a funny
can you
thought.
even name anyone else on that
You know,
defense? Like Cam Taylor Britt, maybe? Is that his name? Might be it.
yeah. So Shamar Stewart, Trey Hendrickson, Cam Taylor Britt, Hubbard retired. Sam Hubbard.
Yeah, he's gone. That's gonna be an impactful loss.
That's
He was a
actually
good
that's a
player.
really good thought exercise. I now want to look up
We're normally good about
2025
naming players, but
Bengals.
Cincinnati's defense does not have a lot of good ones. Jermaine Pratt, he left. He's gone. They released him. I think the Raiders picked him
Hey,
up.
Demetrius Knight, whom they just drafted, Geno
Huh.
Stone, uh,
Oh, safety.
Joseph Asai. I feel like I've heard before. Miles Murphy.
He was drafted a
What? Is
couple
he a
years
former
ago.
first round pick? Okay, yeah. Yeah, not a lot of recognizable names. Hubbard was, yeah, right. Um, anyway, so that is pretty interesting. Yeah, I think in the context of like AFC contenders, like yeah, Bills Ravens, and it's probably gonna be either the Bills or the Ravens. If there's a third team to like kind of rise up there, like I mean,
Could be
Texans
Houston.
could be up there, but it could be Houston. But I also feel like equally it could be like the Chargers or the Broncos or even the Bengals. Like I mean, honestly, in a playoff
I
game,
wanna.
Houston
The
Texans
Chargers
versus
are another
Cincinnati
team I
Bengals.
really like and want to believe in. I think I've got them winning like 12 games, but until they get past
Yeah.
the whole Chargers choke in the playoffs thing, I mean they didn't win their playoff game last year. I don't know. We'll see.
The Chargers, Justin Herbert has never won a playoff game, which, at some point, like, you just got to
If
do
man,
it. Like, Justin Herbert is probably someone we'll talk about later in the over underrated section, which is where, just like, and theoretically he's good. And like this, he had a good regular season, but,
yeah,
you know,
it's
yeah,
weird.
I do remember Lou Anarumo was considered like, he was like a defensive genius, like that year the Bengals made the Super Bowl. And then suddenly it's just like,
He
yeah,
was
he's just like not
probably a
that
little
good.
overrated because of that Super Bowl run. It's not like they got there because of the defense, but
Yeah, I think I remember the defense was very good, but it was like the offense. It was like the offense obviously carried, but like the defense did
it
what they
was
needed
like
to do. Because
I'm
I
gonna
think the
make a weird
defense did
comparison
stymie.
to the college ranks. It was like 2019 LSU. The offense was ridiculous with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase especially, but then the defense wasn't great, but it was opportunistic enough and made plays at the right times
Yeah,
in order to not lose games. So that would be my
yeah,
comparison there.
definitely.
But then since then,
Right.
the defense has just been terrible. And to answer the question from Sudoku,
Mhm.
I don't know why their defense was so bad. Like they had the sack leader in Trey Henderson, right? So and they had a decent corner in Cam Taylor Britt. I guess they just don't have enough overall. It seemed like their secondary was not very good. It seems like their run defense wasn't very good. So they just couldn't stop anyone. I mean, Carolina was scoring on them early in the season. That was before Bryce was like actually playing well. In fact, I'm not even sure Bryce played that game to be honest. So I don't know. They just don't have enough firepower in the defense, I guess.
Right. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Just I didn't watch like I would be interested actually to like rewatch some of these Bengals game and just see like what went wrong. Because I know like on paper how bad the defense was, but I actually would be interested to like watch and see like were they just like not getting pressure on the quarterback, were their corners and safeties getting burned, like what was going on there. But it'll be interesting to see if they can like improve. Definitely doesn't help that like 50% of your salary cap is allocated to three guys, you would ideally it would not be the case, but it's just they were kind of out leveraged in that situation. So we will see what comes of the Bengals and the rest of the AFC teams. Although this is all probably for the Chiefs to just make the Super Bowl, but it does look like the Ravens are assembling a power team. Bills are always very good and consistent. You could have some up and comers like the Texans, the Broncos, the Chargers, and maybe Steelers. Right? They're totally contenders.
Not even going
But
there
yeah, right. It'll be interesting to see.
for sure.
So yeah,
Time will
any
tell.
additional thoughts about Jaire Alexander or the Ravens or anything like that?
Not really. Just a win-win for both sides. Low risk, high reward move for Baltimore, in my opinion. We'll see if it helps them, or we'll see if they choke in the playoffs again. We won't know for a while.
Yeah.